Do much better than I do. Okay. The title of my essay was Sound the Alarm, Awaken the Dream. November 4th, 2008. As I sat on the sofa watching the first African-American president of the United States be elected, I recall verbalizing two very distinct sensations. One, I can't breathe, and two, I wish my grandma Eudora made it to see this. We'll revisit a lack of oxygen farther down, but let us first begin with that longing for my grandmother. She passed away shortly before her birthday in 2007, and I wondered what it would have meant to her if she had been able to see this day. I wondered if she would have felt, as many in the media reported, that we as a people had finally made it. Was this man, this black man, this first black man elected as president, proof positive that we had overcome? Had our someday turned into today, November 4th, 2008? Had we, the heirs and heiresses of Dr. King's dream, finally done our part? Dr. King made dreamers of generations well beyond his own. His vision of a world where we could be judged by the content of our character rather than the color of our skin set a revolution in motion. He inspired not only his own people, but all races to pursue social justice through a pathway of peace that too often made them victims of violence. They were people buttressed by a steadfast faith in their church. This was not the impotent church we see today. This was a church at the heart of the community, not on its outskirts. This was a church where black people exercised a living faith, a faith connected with action that affected change in the world. They understood the Christians' call to labor for the cause of social justice and took it up together as one body. Dr. King answered the call on his life, and perhaps even more importantly, he recognized that he himself, just like Moses, may never make it to that promised land. But the seeds he planted would bear fruit. Separate would no longer be considered equal. Our right to vote would no longer be exercised with fear of reprisal. We gained admittance to institutions of higher education. We could be anything we wanted to be. We could be president of the United States of America. With the election of our 44th president, we as the sons and daughters of the civil rights movement have surely realized Dr. King's dream, haven't we? We have made it. This is where the story ends, and a multitude of new stories begin. Sadly, these new stories tell the tales of politicians and factions in Congress who made it known that their only mission since the election of President Obama is the work of not passing a single piece of legislation he would introduce or support. These news stories tell of a Supreme Court of the United States striking down the heart of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, thereby allowing states where minority voting rights continue to be the most at risk to change election laws without federal oversight. The old rally cry of "we shall overcome" gives way to new desperate proclamations that Black Lives Matter and I can't breathe. As he gasped his last breaths on that sidewalk in Staten Island, I wonder if Eric Garner thought about his civil rights being violated. I doubt it. I wonder if he knew his final words would galvanize the nation. I doubt it. I think it's more likely he thought of his wife and children. He had no way of knowing that his life, a simple life, the life of an everyday average man, would be added to the stories of other average, everyday men to capture the attention of the world. He made us think. Trayvon, Michael, Jordan, Tamir, all made us think. In 2015, why are we marching for something as basic as a black man's right to exist without the fear that his mere presence is justification for suspicion and ultimately taking his life? Why are we demanding trials, not even convictions, but open trials to lay bare the circumstances surrounding the killings of black men? In perhaps his most famous poem, Langston Hughes asks the question, what happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? The current ills in our society make me wonder if Dr. King's dream has been left out to dry in the heat of our complacency. and we are now faced with the consequences of our failure to nurture his vision. It is my belief that the future of his dream and the dreams of all those who sacrifice so much for equality lies in the Black community reconnecting with itself. Our churches, once the centers of our communities, are struggling to remain relevant in the lives of young people. We have lost the sense that we are all responsible for one another. What happens to my brother or sister happens to me. Our families are broken. Some would have us think irrevocably, but we know better. We have been and still are people grounded in faith, and our progress must be rooted in the sure knowledge that as one body in Christ, all things are possible. Education is paramount. The school-to-prison pipeline has no power over people who count inventors, explorers, scientists, and Nobel Prize winners among us. We have made great strides. We will make more. Our advances and initiation into an every man for himself global society have divided us. We have been complacent. We must be roused from our collective slumber. Sound the alarm.